Catus, Maximus here. This time it's a little review of a vessel. Let's get it oriented. The vessel 3/8 inch hand impact driver. This is a bog standard, that style that has been made for decades. I think this is one of the original type of styles. Most commonly found in 1/2 inch, but this one happens to be 3/8. I will say the ball is just a little bit soft. Shouldn't be able to press a detent in like it's just a firm button. It does have mighty thick walls on this adapter. And as far as hand impact drivers, how they work is you simply press in, or you press it against whatever fastener you're trying to use. You put a little bit of tension, like if you're unscrewing something, put a little unscrewing and tension on it. And then when you hit this, it compresses, and there's a little cam mechanism in here, so when the body goes down, it causes this to want to turn. So I've actually done a review of several of these, like Mark 1s and the Pittsburghs and stuff, and they're all basically the same design, just different levels of build quality. And I'll have to say this vessel does seem pretty decent, although they did roll stamp it crooked, which I think is a little bit interesting. Model number 2500. It does have a very stiff spring. As far as hand impact drivers, a long time ago I had a snap-on one, and I'll tell you, the spring in this is probably getting close to that. This is a extremely rigid spring, and so you'll have to strike it pretty hard. But when you strike the body, that thing's almost impossible. Here's one of my favorite styles, the old school Lyle. Lyle has changed the design, but this old Lyle design really was super easy to use and just had a lot of action. So when you press down on the handle, you can see the anvil turns. This does the same thing. It just has a spring that's probably 4 times as stiff as that Lyle. We can see that the end cap, this has definitely been used some. It looks like somebody used a framing hammer or something like that on this, because the dents are actually pretty sharp. But you're supposed to use a pretty heavy, like 2 or 3 pound hammer on one of these, so you're not like a carpenter's or framing hammer or claw hammer. You need something with some mass, so this jams this down. I'm just surprised at how stiff the spring is. It's ridiculous. As far as how these are reversed, you actually just grab the anvil and it pops over. The cam is like a V wedge in there, so when you pop it over, it just moves it to the other side of the V. So if we actually turn this to the right, the handle, it switches gear or switches direction to now want to impact in a tightening fashion. So when we press on it, gosh, this thing is, the spring is insane on that. The same thing on the Lyle. What you would do is you just turn it, and then you're in a tightening motion, and then you can hammer, and it'll move the anvil in the clockwise direction. You do it the other way, such as turn the handle or move that, it moves into counterclockwise direction, and it's supposed to basically make sense. Oh, I want to loosen something, I'll put it on the fastener. I want to make sure that it's in loosen mode just by turning it to the left, and then I'm going to hit it with a hammer. These things do use extra duty bits. This is a 6.3 millimeter or 1/4 inch. It's 8 millimeter or 5/16. So these adapters use much larger, much heavier duty bits because of the forces that are involved. These things are super popular with people who have motorcycles, that type of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and try to take this apart so you can see how the design works. The designs do vary. Like I said, I really like just the smooth action of the Lyle. But on this one, there's either like a set of ball bearings that run in a track, or there's just a crossbar and there's this kind of V-shaped cutout in the anvil. So let's see if I can't get this little snap ring off. What it is there's a snap ring that holds the collar. This collar is what's holding the side pin in. These snap rings can be, sometimes they come right off, and sometimes they're just really recalcitrant. You got to use some sharp picks to try to get under it, and there it goes. In this case, that worked out for me. Just pop that little ring off. Here there is a excuse me, there is like a little dowel pin that kind of keeps this thing aligned. This is really kind of stuck on there. So, turns out that that dowel pin had actually worn some divots in each side of that. And so here's this giant dowel pin that goes through, and so how you'd rebuild these is you'd press it in. I believe this is, let me get a magnet here. Always interesting. Looks like we're going to have a couple of half pins here. There we go. So we have a cap and a ball bearing. So sometimes it's pins. It's kind of interesting, to tell you the truth. And let's finish taking this apart before I so rudely interrupted. I just find it interesting because there does seem to be a degree of variation. Oh, that just got jammed. Oh, come on. Man, these things... Now this doesn't want to cooperate. This has been quite the vessel. So you can just see that there's a track. It goes up and down, so when you're hammering against it, that track runs against the balls that are on both sides, causing the twist. This one has gotten pretty worn. If we look at the little cap, you can see just a bit of wear around the edge. That one ain't coming out. But they're a real simple design. I do kind of like the ones that have the rod through it, just because they're a little easier to rebuild, to tell you the truth. And they may last longer, although I'm not sure. And I have seen really pretty well used versions of these. What ends up happening is that ball ends up just getting hammered around and ends up making a big indentation to where this thing has to go, you know, most of the way down before it engages. So anyway, I'm going to reassemble this and finish out this funky video. So that was my discombobulated video about this vessel impact driver. Even my cat found something interesting. What are you sniffing there? There's nothing even there for you to sniff. Maybe a cat peed on this. That's why I was so discombobulated in this video. Overall, I mean, it's an okay design. Maybe not the absolute best, like compared to a Lyle or like a Snap-on or something like that. It is a very standard design, but this vessel does seem to be made pretty well. And as opposed to a lot of others, on this vessel, they put in just an extra duty spring. Not entirely sure why. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.